Welcome to the EmpowerElle podcast. I'm your host, Vero, and I'm so excited to have you join me on this journey of empowerment and growth. This podcast is designed for ambitious, high-achieving women who are ready to break free from overwhelm and step into their power. Together, we'll explore practical strategies, share inspiring stories, and hear from experts who can help you navigate the challenges of balancing ambition and well-being. Whether you're looking to cultivate confidence, transform your mindset, enhance your leadership skills, or find harmony in your life, this is the place for you. Let's dive in. Welcome to the EmpowerElle podcast. I'm so happy that you're here for a very special episode. If you are listening to this on the day that it drops, it is my birthday. I am 35 years old, and I wanted to make a special, different episode for my birthday. And as I was thinking about what I could do, my first thought was doing like a 35 facts or 35 things I've learned for 35 years, but I didn't really feel like doing that. I have a post that's gonna come out that's gonna be some type of 35 things about me, but I wanted you to have a chance to get to know me better. So I decided to actually kind of summarize my life in chunks of 5 years. So what do I remember? What happened? What lessons have I learned throughout my entire life? So let's see how this goes and let's dive in. So we'll start with 0 to 5 years. Obviously, I don't have a ton of memories from 0 to 5 years, but there are two major things. So the first, I don't actually remember, but have been told about how this happened, and it has impacted the rest of my life. And that was meeting my best friend. So I met my best friend when I was 3.5 years old. I consider myself very lucky for that to have happened at such a young age. We met at L'Heure du Conte for my French people at the Dieppe library. And obviously we clicked right away, and we've been friends our whole lives. Still to this day, she was my maid of honor in my wedding. We don't necessarily have the chance to see each other or talk all that often just because we're adults and life is busy. But every time we do, it's like no time has passed. And you'll see as I keep going through the episode that friends and social situations weren't always easy for me. But she was the one person that has been there my whole entire life. So I met her at 3.5 years old, and like I said, she's been a constant in my life. And the second thing that I remember from that time period is my 4th birthday. And I don't know why. Actually, I think it's because there's a video of it. And this is way back when you actually had to have like a camcorder and record videos and then put it on a VHS and watch it that way on a tape. And so now that I think of it, I think that's why I remember it, is because I've seen it and not just lived it. And what is sticking with me are the gifts that I received on my 4th birthday. And I'll tell you what they are, but first, there are things that represent me so well. Still to this day, they are my favorite things. And as I was reflecting on that, I feel like it was obvious as a kid what I loved, because I think we don't really have a filter as a kid. We're just being ourselves when no one has yet told us who we should be or what we should and shouldn't do. And so the things that I really lit me up were pretty obvious. And they are part of the gifts that I got on my 4th birthday. And I think I have lost a lot of that throughout most of my life. And as I'm rediscovering who I am, they are still the things that I love. So on my 4th birthday, I received skates, a T-ball, a microphone, and some like cute girly clothes. So the video that I can picture in my head is me in a dress, wearing my skates. I had skate guards, but wearing my skates around the house, hitting the T-ball, and then singing songs in my microphone. And so I think that was really a time in my life where I was fully being myself. Like to this day, I love sports, I love music, and I love being both in comfy tomboy-ish clothes, and I love dressing up and being a girly girl as well. So I think it just really represents who I am, but you can also see that I wasn't shy. I wasn't trying to dim anything down or to change who I was. As I was growing up, I remember some people telling me, "Oh, do you still sing?" And I was like, "What do you mean, do you still sing?" And as a young girl, when I went to my brother's hockey games, I used to sing for people. And if you would ask me to sing now, that would be a hell no. But not because I don't love singing, because I don't have a talent at singing, but I didn't care at that age. I just did what I loved and what made me happy. And I think we can all take lessons from who we were as a kid, because I think that's who we really are to our core. So those are my core memories from 0 to 5 years old. Now if we move on from 5 to 10 years old, so obviously I started school I started at like 4 years old just because my birthday is in November. But anyway, so I started school at 5 years old, and I also started ringette and baseball around 5 or 6 years old. So this is when I started to get socialized, right? This is when I started sports, and it's when I started being around other kids at school. And I think actually it's important to say that my brother and I, we always had a babysitter that used to come to our house, so we never went to daycare. So I wasn't around other kids all day, every day, like I would have been if I would have been in a daycare. And I don't think that that's right or wrong. It's just to say that when I started school, it really was the first, like the big socialization with school and with sports. So when I started school, and you might know this part of my story already, but it came fairly easy to me. But I was also told that not only was I smart, but that I was a good girl. And that's when I really started embodying what that meant to me. And to me, being a good girl was someone who was quiet, who followed the rules, who listened. And so I really started becoming that person. As I just told you, as a 4-year-old, I was walking around the house in a dress and in skates, singing and hitting a t-ball. It's not really a quiet little girl, but that's what I became. I really started being shy and quiet and more reserved. And even in sports, like I loved playing sports. It wasn't something that I was particularly good at. And I wasn't really friends with the people that were playing, so I was just kind of there for the love of the sport and not to socialize with people. And so it really started to be more obvious that I had to dim my light and that I had to be quiet and reserved and good and not fully express who I was. So if we move to 10 to 15 years old, that trend not only continues but is actually exaggerated, because I think at that age you really start seeing more how social circles are so important at that age, and your status in school is like everything when you are at that age. And that was not me at all. So I think during this time period it started to be even more obvious that I felt like I did not fit in at all. And I didn't fit in anywhere. Yes, I was smart in school, but I wasn't like the quote unquote like the nerdy, that's all I cared about type of people. I also loved sports, but I wasn't really good at them. I had a few friends, but my friends were really the ones that like actually knew me outside of school. So in school, I didn't have a big friend circle. I was socially awkward, and I felt like I wasn't good at anything except school, where I was maybe above average, but not like the top of the top. So there was just nowhere where I belonged. And towards the end of these 5 years, so from 10 to 15, when you start going into the 14, 15, that's when you start like caring about your appearance and about boys and all of that. And I wasn't a pretty girl. I didn't care about boys. They obviously did not care about me. And I was just so afraid to disappoint. I was just a shell of myself, to be completely honest. Everything I did was to keep up that identity and that image of being a good, quiet, reserved girl that did not cause any trouble and didn't disappoint anyone. And I've never been someone that wanted to cause trouble. Even when I was fully myself as a kid, I was definitely louder and loved to talk and, like I said, to sing and to play. But I wasn't someone who was trying to defy people or to go against the rules anyway. But I leaned so much into that I completely lost the spark that was who I was. So if we now move to the 15 to 20 year old, so this is, I feel like, a pivotal time in a lot of people's lives. It certainly was in mine. So during this time, obviously I graduated high school with zero confidence, like none, absolutely none. I had no belief in myself. I felt like I had one friend that was the same friend since I was 3.5 years old. I'd have to say I remember one instance of being bullied, but that's really it. So I think I was lucky in that sense, where even though I didn't feel like I fit in, I wasn't really, like, just no one was talking to me. So I wasn't bullied because I was just invisible, I guess. So in that sense, it could have been worse. If I was truly bullied, I think it would have had a really negative impact on my life when I think about the confidence that I had back then. If I had bullying on top of that, I don't know how that would have went, but it would not have been good. So, okay, so back to 15 to 20-year-old. So obviously, like I said, graduated high school, zero confidence. But this is also the time period where I started dating my now husband. So we went to our high school prom together as friends. I was supposed to go with another guy friend. He went back with his girlfriend a few weeks before. She didn't want him to come with me, whatever. And I didn't want to go alone. And it was like 3 weeks before, so I was like panicking. And if you know my husband, it was like way too early for him to even think about a prom date 3 weeks before prom. And my best friend was actually really good friends with him. So she kind of connected us and we went to prom together. And we decided to hang out a little bit before prom so that it wasn't like super awkward. We obviously knew of each other, like we'd been going to school, the same school together for a really long time. But he wasn't really someone that I talked to, actually. So this is kind of funny because from everything that I've told you so far, I'm sure that you can imagine that in a classroom, I was quiet, followed the rules, did my homework, studied, try to get the best grades that I possibly could. And he was the absolute opposite. And I say this with also telling you that he's the smartest person I know. And he actually did really well in school, but he is not the type of person to be able to just sit in a classroom and listen. And the more annoying he could be in school, the happier he was. So he definitely wasn't like my favorite person. We'll just leave it at that. But we decided to hang out a little bit before prom so that we would get to know each other a little bit more. I went to prom together and that's how it all started. Like we hung out that whole summer, probably every single day, and have been together ever since then. And I think the thing that makes it work is that while I'm the quietest version of me in a classroom, he was the loudest version of him, but in real life we're a lot more in the middle. So I was 17 years old when we started dating, and I still had that image of me needing to be perfect in order to keep him. The perfect girlfriend, the perfect person. I couldn't understand why he loved me. Because from everything I've told you, I think it's pretty obvious that not only did I not love myself, I didn't even know that it was possible for someone to love themselves. Like, I didn't know that that was a concept that existed. So I definitely had no love for myself. And so it was really hard for me to understand how someone who didn't have to love me actually loved me. But it slowly actually started growing my confidence back. I think the mix of that, so starting to date my husband and see how he loved me and how he treated me, and also starting university, where I was now in a different environment with brand new people. Like there was only one person from high school that was in my program at university. So I started to feel a little bit more like I could be a bit more myself. Now, to no stretch of the imagination was I a confident person, but I felt like I didn't have to keep up the image that I had created my whole life. So during this time period, like I mentioned, I also started university, and I studied accounting because I liked numbers and was good at math. Now, this might seem logical to you if you don't really know accounting. If you know accounting, you know that that does not make you a good accountant. So I think it's just one of those things where I was once again just following the image and the identity I had created for myself of being smart and being a good girl and needing to continue to study, and just dove in without really knowing what the accounting profession was all about, without ever knowing if it was a job that I would actually enjoy. And I just did my whole bachelor's degree that way. So it's a 15 to 20 year old was definitely a pivotal time. There's a lot of changes going on in that period. On top of that, starting a relationship, and it was my first ever relationship. I've never dated anyone else ever, because he was my first boyfriend, and we've been together since then. So if we now move to 20 to 25, a lot of changes here as well. So graduated university, started my real adult career. We bought our first home when we were 21 and 22. A small little duplex in Dieppe, but it was ours, which was amazing. And we also got our first dog. So we got Duke back in 2012, and oh my gosh, I grew up to be scared of dogs, and Alex had dogs his whole life. So I always knew since the time that we were dating that we would eventually have a dog. But to me, it was like, I'll just be okay, hopefully, with it being there. Like, I can't love it. Like, it's not a person. And hopefully I won't be scared and it'll whatever. And so we always said throughout our relationship that we would wait until we actually had a place to ourselves before we get a dog. And we got Duke the summer before we bought our house. So we moved into our house in October of 2012. Yes, October of 2012. So I graduated university that May. So in May of 2012, I graduated university, knew that I was going to start my CPA in the summer. And so we actually moved in to Alex's parents' cottage for the summer while we were looking for a place to live in the fall. So this was our first time living together. We both were living at each of our parents' houses throughout university. And Alex graduated a semester after me just because he started in engineering in UNB and then left that, came to Moncton. Anyways, so I graduated in May. We moved into, like I said, Alex's parents' cottage. And I started my CPA I'm trying to think now, I think it was in June that we started the CPA. So it was very early after university graduation. And we hadn't put an offer on the house or anything yet. We were just living there. And we got Duke during that time period. And Duke was a pit bull mix, but he was 5 weeks old when we got him. So he was this tiny little thing. But when we got him, so I was working full-time at EY at the time, studying for my CPA in the evenings. I was usually studying until 9 p.m. and then going to bed at 9:30. So I had 30 minutes to myself. And Alex was working at the Crown Plaza during that summer. And he was often working from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. So he wasn't home during the evenings. And I remember that I used to be scared of dogs, was not a dog person. And that little puppy wanted all of my attention, and I had no idea what to do with it. I had zero time for myself. I remember just like crying out of frustration. I would have given him away so quickly in that first week. But ends up, I obviously totally fell in love with him. He was the best dog that we could have ever asked for. Thankfully, we were able to buy a house so that we could still have the dog. But that was definitely a pivotal moment because I couldn't see myself not having my boys now. So, okay, let's get back. So graduated university, bought our first home, got Duke, started my real adult career. But I think the biggest thing from 20 to 25 was doing my CPA. And the thing is, as you've heard so far, is that I was good at school. So I worked hard, but I got really good grades throughout high school and throughout most of university. There's a few courses that weren't great. But overall, with hard work, I made it through fairly easily. When I started my CPA, that was not the case at all. So I almost failed the first module. And I did fail the final exam the first time, so I passed it on my second time. But all of that to say that this was my identity, was being good in academic stuff. And I thought that that was the only thing that I was good at. And now all of a sudden I was hit in the face with not being good at it and really finding it difficult. And so that time period completely stripped away any ounce of confidence that I had built until that point was completely gone. I was struggling in my CPA. I felt like I was not good at my job. And those were the only things that I thought I was maybe good at. So all of a sudden it was like I was nothing. And I definitely found that really difficult. I think I didn't realize that I was feeling that way. Like I was just going through the motions of every day. But looking back, I can really see that that was really impactful. Because I was starting to grow some confidence. And then it got completely torn to shreds. And all of a sudden, it was like, I am nothing. I am not good at anything. Like, why am I even here? What am I worth? I have no value to anyone. Because the only thing that I had value in, all of a sudden, I was not good at. So that was definitely a really difficult time. And even though I ended up passing and getting my CPA and obviously was proud of that, the feeling of how much I struggled through it was stronger than the feeling of being proud of getting through it. So that was definitely a key moment. So now let's move to 25 to 30. So for the first few years in 25 to 30, it was like just going through the motions of life. Just the normal everyday of going to work, both of us. And then, well, not just all of a sudden, but we got married. I was 27 when we got married. So there was obviously a good year and almost a half of wedding planning in there that consumed me and honestly distracted me from realizing that I didn't like my job, that I had no confidence, that I didn't know who I was. Planning a wedding is a really, really, really great distraction to not listen to yourself, to not reflect, to not think too much, and to just do. So I did that for a good year and a half, like I said. The wedding was wonderful. We got married in Mexico. We had 50 people there, our friends, our family. And it was absolutely magical to just spend a week with everyone. My family still talks about it to this day. Some of them hadn't really ever traveled and haven't really traveled since. And it was a really, really great experience to bring everyone together. And it went flawlessly. Like, getting married down south is so easy. I highly recommend it. So that was absolutely amazing. By the time we got married, we had been together for 10 years, so it really didn't change anything in our relationship, which I think that's how it should be, to be completely honest. But it was really fun to just have a celebration with everyone that we loved. And just get all dressed up for a day in your wedding dress. You feel amazing. Get your hair and makeup done and all of that. So that was the first half of the 25 to 30 range. And then shortly after that, I actually started working for the company that I'm working for now. And the beginning of it was all wonderful. A key moment actually, so I started in January of 2019. And in early February of 2019, I went to Toronto to do some training. So I had Renee with me, which has been on the podcast, and who I had just met, but we got really close in Toronto, and then 2 other people that we were working with. So there was 4 of us. And it was during a quarter end. So during our quarter ends at our work, we work over the weekend. And so the way that this one fell with the days, we were working on the Saturday, but not on the Sunday. So after work on the Saturday, we stopped at a liquor store to grab a bottle of wine. And then we were going to get ready and go out for supper, since we weren't working on the Sunday. But we were still staying in Toronto because we were there for the whole next week after as well. And so as we were walking back after work on that Saturday, Alex called me and he asked where we were. So I told him we were just walking back, and he asked me to call him once we were back in our hotel room. And I could just tell in his voice that something was off. Whew, all right, it's gonna get emotional. So I called him back, and on that Thursday, so like 3 days before, he had realized that Duke just wasn't himself. He wasn't playing with, he had brought him over to a friend's house and he loved playing with their dog. He wasn't playing with him. He wasn't really eating. So he had brought him to the vet, and I can't even remember. I think it was cancer in, I don't honestly remember the details. Probably subconsciously tried to forget them. But basically he was really sick, and there was nothing that they could do to save him. It was just a matter of time, but he was really suffering at that point. It happened really, really quickly, and he was just 7 years old. Which, yes, it's a big dog, but it's still very young. So he told me all of that. I was obviously, I'm still crying talking about it, because he was, like I said, he was the best dog, and he was the first dog that I loved, and he taught me to love dogs. All right, I'm going to try to compose myself to get through the rest of this story. So, we knew that he didn't have very long and that he was going to suffer anyways. So I booked a flight back home on the Sunday morning. We spent all of Sunday with Duke, wondering what we should be doing. So at that time, Yeah, I think so. My mother-in-law used to babysit him when we were working or when we were away. So I was flying back to Toronto on that Monday morning, and Alex was flying to Montreal for work on that Monday morning. And so we spent the whole Sunday with him. We just cuddled him as much as he wanted to, which he always wanted to. And we were wondering what to do, if we left him with my mother-in-law for the week, hoping he made it through the week so we would get to see him again, but also meaning that we would leave her with the burden of taking him to the vet if it was needed. All of that to say, we made the decision to put him down that evening. So overnight, from the Sunday to the Monday, we brought him to the emergency vet. Had him put down, which was like the hardest thing ever, and did not sleep at all that night. And I flew back to Toronto Monday morning, and Alex flew to Montreal Monday morning, and we just kind of moved on with our lives. But when we came back to an empty house, it's like, that's where it really hit us. Okay, give me a sec. So that was a really, really difficult time. Obviously, not very long after, Alex started looking for a new dog because we just couldn't, we could not have a presence in our life. And he found Diesel on Kijiji, I think. Diesel was in Halifax, and as he was messaging them, we found out that Diesel is actually born on the day that Alex realized that Duke was sick, which is really special. And so we knew that he was meant to be ours. So we got Diesel at the end of March in 2012. No, in 2019. In 2019. So we got Diesel. It was so full of energy, and we were used to a very calm Duke who just loved to cuddle, and Diesel was very independent and so full of energy. And so that was definitely a change, but a good and a good welcomed change. And then later that year is when I got promoted to manager at work. And if you've listened to my first episode, you know that that was a very rocky road. So that's when I really, really, really started struggling with anxiety, crying every single day, couldn't sleep. That's when shit hit the fan. Well, let's just put it that way. So that was when I was 29, just turning 29. So the last year of my 25 to 30 was spent just trying to survive, to be completely honest. I was in full anxiety, burnout mode, and just trying to stay afloat. So if we move to 30 to 35, obviously the beginning of that was still in that very heightened anxiety mode. And it was also the pandemic. So the pandemic hit in 2020, and I would have turned 30 in November of 2020. So during this time, we were all working from home. And so my struggles with anxiety and all of that started before the pandemic when we were in the office, but it definitely continued and probably even got increased when we were all working from home. I found it really difficult that home and work were the same place. There was no way to disconnect at all. We were in our little duplex at the time. And so I was working in the spare bedroom, but it was like in the basement with no windows, and it just was not good for anyone's mental health at that point. So that's how the beginning of my 30s started. And then in the summer, actually right before the summer, right before like all the houses prices went way crazy, we decided to put our duplex for sale. And once again, I mean, it sold so fast that we once again moved into Alex's parents' cottage for the summer as we were looking for a house. And before even then, we had been looking for a second dog, had found Scout. He's a rescue from Texas, and he was supposed to arrive in April. Well, the pandemic started in March, so there was no Scout coming in April. We ended up having Scout in June while we were living in the cottage. And so the beginning of living in the cottage was great. I could bring Diesel to the beach, he could run. As much as it's such a small cottage, that part was wonderful. The part that I found more difficult was that not only was work and home in the same place, it was like in the same room. Like it's I was working like in the kitchen that I could see from the living room. So I was never ever able to disconnect. And I think the hard thing about working from home during the pandemic is that you could never say like, no, my work day's done. Because, well, first of all, people didn't have boundaries at that time. No one knew what that was. And everyone knew that you were working from home, you had your work stuff, and you couldn't go anywhere. And so we got Scout during that time. And I'll keep this a little short because this episode is going long. But basically, when we got Scout, it took a little while, but we found out that his paw was broken and he needed surgery on his paw to fix it. So we got that done, and the vet was not satisfied with the surgery, and so he operated on him again a week after. So we had 2 surgeries within a week apart, and then was in a cast after that for 8 weeks, and even had a cast a week before his surgery until they could figure out what surgery they needed to do. So all of that to say that that time period was very difficult because I couldn't really leave Scout alone, and I couldn't bring him anywhere. So I felt very stuck. I felt stuck at the cottage, not able to leave and not able to disconnect from work. And it was all very, very, very difficult. I think when I finally started to feel better and finally started on a road to healing was when we moved into our house here. And I think the big thing is that I have an office in here that is kind of separate from the rest of the house. And I was able to start finding a way to disconnect from work. And I felt at home as soon as we moved in here. I remember the first day telling Alex, I feel at home here. And it's really been my peace ever since we have moved here. So I really started healing. I started rediscovering who I was, who that 4-year-old girl was that was still living inside of me. And it's really when I started feeling better. I'll always say that my 30s were the best years. The first year or two were maybe a little rocky, but if that would not have happened, I would still be just going through the motions and running on that hamster wheel, not reflecting, not knowing who I am, with no confidence. I would not be the woman that I am today speaking to you here right now if I hadn't gone through the harder times. And so through that rediscovering, I also started EmpowerElle, which is my passion project. It's something that I'm so excited about, as you all know, and as you're able to hear every week. And so it's really given me hope. It's given me hope that life can be enjoyed. And I have found a new confidence with who I am. I'm at a point now where I am unapologetically myself, and if you don't like it, it doesn't change anything in my life. I don't need those kinds of people in my life, and that's it. I keep my circle very small, and that's how I like it. I have discovered that it's okay that I enjoy being by myself. And just the fact that I can actually enjoy being with myself is monumental. But I'm no longer trying to hide who I am or be someone else. So now I am stepping into the 35 to 40 chapter. I'm honestly really excited. I thought that being in my late 30s would be scary, but it's not scary at all. I am so looking forward to it. I feel better than I have ever had, and I think that that's just going to keep going that way. I think that 35 to 40 is going to be transformational. I think it's going to be the time period where I'm going to get to live my purpose. I'm going to get to love what I do every day. I'm going to get to impact women's lives in a positive way. I'm going to get to coach women who want to dream big. I'm going to get to be a successful business owner. And I'm going to get to have the freedom that I've been dreaming of for the past probably 3 years that I didn't know was possible. I'm going to achieve that in the next 5 years. And I know that for a fact. And I'm so excited. So I will leave you with that because this has been a long episode. I guess I had a lot to say. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope that you've gotten to know me better through this. I hope that this shows you that it's never too late. That if you've been dimming your life or if you've been going through hard times, that you'll get through it. You have gotten through 100% of your bad days. And you will get through the rest of them as well. And that what is on the other side is priceless. What is on the other side of difficult times is absolutely life-changing. And if you're in the thick of it right now, I just want you to keep that bit of hope as you listen to this episode. So thank you so much for being here. Let me know if you love this more raw, unfiltered, unprepared type of episode, and share it, tag me. I would love to hear what your takeaway is from this. So I want to remind you to keep going after your dreams and to live through your vision and your values, because that is the real power. I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you for tuning into the EmpowerElle podcast. I hope today's episode inspired you and gave you practical insights to help you navigate your journey as an ambitious, high-achieving woman. Remember, every step you take towards building your confidence and embracing your full potential is a step closer to creating the life you truly desire. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform. Your support helps us reach more women who are ready to step into their power and live their best lives. Don't forget to join our community on social media for more resources, tips, and inspiration. Until next time, lead with power and live with wellness. You are unstoppable.